what I do, what I do, da da do, da da do.
And here we go. Well, first of all, hello, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Not bad, given the circumstances. I wanted to lock this chat down with you to share with our community because, first of all, I respect you as a fellow agency founder and an entrepreneur. I especially respect your legendary networking skills. Second to none. The world's greatest networker is what some people are saying.
They're the rumours.
Yeah, that's the word on the street, anyway. So yeah, and I thought that it'd be good for you to share a bit of your journey with our community, and especially then hone in and focus in on those amazing networking skills, how to do it, etc. But I think to start with, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and your agency in a nutshell.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nathan from Quickfire Digital. I founded Quickfire Digital about 4 years ago. I left school 7 years ago, decided to set up an agency, built a team offshore, realised very quickly the pitfalls of having a team offshore, decided to bring it all over to Norwich, found 2 other directors, also learnt that it's easier to do it with a couple others with you, and then co-founded Quickfire Digital. So Quickfire Digital is an e-commerce focused digital transformation agency. So what I mean by that is we help online stores maximize efficiency, profitability, and scalability through the use of tech. So typically when you go and you look at an online store, any online store, you'll see that it maybe WooCommerce, maybe Shopify, maybe Magento, PrestaShop, the list goes on. But a lot of them neglect their audience, they lose sight of their proposition, and they fail to stand out from the crowd. They're just yet another online store. And so that's when typically you'd use someone like Quickfire to come in and say, okay, let's first of all look at the strategy here. What are we trying to achieve? And then let's work backwards to try and achieve what it is we've set out to.
Sweet. So I like you got your elevator pitch down, mate. Like it's good stuff.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. I think it's quite an important thing for networking to have that, though, right?
Definitely. That's the thing, right? Imagine this was offline. If I've got 30 seconds with you over a beer or whatever, like what can I do in a big crowded room to make myself stand out?
Or if we were literally in an elevator for 30 seconds, that's it. There'd be handshakes at the end of it, and yeah, that would be it. It'd be great to know how you went, like in a bit more detail, from sort of non-business owner, like obviously you said straight out of school, so you're a young'un. You're a young'un. Like, how did you make that leap into, and what did that entail?
I think I was very fortunate in that my parents had always been in the world of entrepreneurship and had hotels, and therefore I'd kind of grown up in it, right? So I'd always had little businesses, and actually I tried to start my first business when I was 15, which was called sleepanight.com, and it was before it was better than booking.com. It was the booking.com before booking.com. And I still hold that to this day. However, their idea obviously superseded it, and they had cash and I didn't, and I was doing it at weekends and evenings, and it just didn't.
I can tell you're quite bitter about it still.
Oh yeah, no, but I have not slept since. I'm absolutely fuming.
Let it out, man. That's why we're here.
This is it. If this is counselling, I'm all ears. But no, it was to be fair, I've always wanted to do something, and when I left school, I had the great opportunity to go to Loughborough University, and I just decided that actually everybody was going to university, and it's a bit of a kind of the norm now. Where once upon a time it was very prestigious, and only a select few went. It seemed to almost go the other way, and I decided that actually I would always regret not giving it a go. And what better time when I had no overheads, no commitments? Like, why not? I was just living at home, no children, nothing. So I was like, great. So I did that. Like I said, built up a team. Well, first month, I'll never forget it. We got our first project, and I was like, oh, Christ, now I've got to deliver this thing. What am I going to do? And I'd had like 3 months work experience in a web agency over the summer when I was earning money before I went traveling. So I just decided to, go on Upwork and find some people that could deliver the work. And all I would say, if you're working with offshore teams, there are, of course, massive perks, is that you go through a bit of a honeymoon period. So the first 3 to 4 months of working with those guys was unbelievable. They'd be working day and night and delivering some great work. And then it just got lazier and lazier and lazier. And as we know, it's all about reputation, and whether it be personal brand or your business brand, like it's all about reputation. And so I quickly realized that actually while it may look good, the structure wasn't great and it wasn't scalable. And what would happen is I'd get quick wins, but I was in this game for a long time. Like at 18, I had to probably be in agency life 30, 40 years. So I was like, there's no way I can continue delivering this quality of products. And so I brought it back to the UK. And that was when I was about 22. And don't get me wrong, I created a lovely lifestyle and I had the most unbelievable life, flying around the world, eating great food, living the dream. But at the same time, it just wasn't sustainable. I was working 19, 20-hour days. So I started an agency over here, kind of rebranded. The story goes, I'd saved up a bit of money from that company and I was about to put it into a deposit on a house, and my parents were all very excited. And I decided actually that I wasn't going to do that. I was going to rebrand my company. So I sunk it all into a rebrand, which, yeah, to this day, I don't think my parents have ever forgiven me, but it was the right decision. So that created
the more bitterness and regret, right?
Yeah, exactly. Quickfire Digital then started. We quickly scaled the team. So in the last 2 years, we've gone up to 17 people, which has been great. The reason we've grown so fast is maybe the networking. Maybe we'll see in a minute. But actually, mainly it's down to being specialists rather than generalists. So we've just really focused in on WordPress and Shopify development, not tried to do SEO, PPC, social. Like, that's not our sphere of excellence. So let's just become famous for one thing. And that's what we're on the path to doing and really enjoying it.
I think niching and specialism is one of the things we talk about in our course, like to our aspiring copywriters, because obviously, in a way, copywriting is its own niche, but at the same time, within that, you know, there are ways to niche down and to be that go-to specialist within that certain sector, for example. So just to sort of loop back to the beginning stages, were you first building the sites yourself? Would you say you were freelancing at the beginning? You were
exactly right. Yeah, I was a freelancer. I was working for other agencies. I was building the sites, populating the sites, and it was very basic, right? It was WordPress templates, go on ThemeForest, get a theme, install it, download it, turn it up, upload the demo content, rip out the content, put in your own content. Jobs are good, and that was great. And that has its place in the market. But at the same time, I realized that is for the start of the market and the lowest end of the market. And that's not where we wanted to operate. I want to be able to make a real difference. And actually, to make a real difference, you need to be doing a bit more than that. And so I decided, actually, let's start building sites from scratch. Let's get more involved in strategy and wireframing and design and why something looks as it does, not just because it looks pretty. And then build-wise, how can I maximize efficiency by creating this API or by connecting these two bits of software, etc. And that takes us more to where we are today, really.
Awesome. And how did you get, if you remember way back when, to those teenage days, how did you get your first gig? Like, so for someone who's literally now making that life choice, that decision to maybe leave a career behind, whether it's being forced or because they're deciding they want something different, how did you get that? Because I think that's a huge barrier for freelancers, for beginning, agencies, for any entrepreneur. How did you get that gig? And then from then, how did you get more work?
So two things. The one thing, if I could encourage anyone to anything, I was very fortunate at 18 that I had confidence, and I also had no fear because there was literally nothing to lose. And that's something that as you get older, perhaps you've been in corporate life and then you go onto your own entrepreneurial journey, you do have bills to pay. You do have certain deadlines and things to hit. Whereas for myself, I was 18, I had literally nothing to protect. So I was just like, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen if I ask this person if they want a website? Yeah, they might say no worries, I'll go on to the next one. Which obviously, as you get older, you realize that that's harder and harder and harder, and people fear rejection. So that was the first thing.
Maybe you could have got grounded by your parents at that time.
Yeah, exactly right. So that was thing one. My first project was actually through another agency, and that's something I've always advocated is, and we'll come on to this shortly actually, but mainly if you work through other agencies, sometimes it's not perfect to white label, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's annoying because you can't take the credit for some of the work you're doing. However, sometimes it's necessary to do it. And actually, for us starting out, it was perfect. We would go to agencies, whether it be in London, in Norwich at the time, wherever. I was based out on the coast. And I would say, look, I'll deliver you Norwich or London quality at Chroma prices or wherever I was based, like real out in the sticks. And therefore, I was able to deliver them exactly what they needed at a fraction of the price and quickly as well. that was another thing, is that I didn't mind doing the graft and getting a site turned around in 48 hours, which to some agencies was really attractive.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a good. You gotta put the work in, right, to start with, and
And
there's no two ways about it.
There's no magic bullet, right? And so people that start up a business and think that tomorrow they're going to be rich is a bit of, I mean, I don't know what you promised in your course, but I'm sure.
Shut up.
I'm sure it's still an overnight success.
To be honest, the copywriting world is full of people that overpromise. There are these kind of, I'd consider it kind of old school copywriting. There are these entrepreneurs that start courses and say, take this course and you'll be earning 6 figures in like 3 weeks, that kind of thing. And people get hooked on it. They get hooked on the big sell and, like the big discounts and things. Whereas what we're trying to do is create something that's practical, that, that gives them the business sense they need to actually succeed, not just the art and science of copywriting itself, and basically learning from my mistakes and successes and those in my community like yourself.
Definitely. So I think that's really important, right? Like, essentially, there is no super quick win. There's no, you won't be rich tomorrow, but at the same time, if you're prepared to put in the graft, you can absolutely make money in this game.
Definitely. Awesome. And so let's get on to like your number one subject, what you're famous for, the world's most prolific networker. I would love to hear, a breakdown of how you tackle networking and some tips and tricks.
Okay, so the model started with a book, which I am going to plug it, mate. I hope that this is okay.
Of course.
It's called Agencynomics, if you see that there. It's by some, I know you guys have worked with Spencer and Pete, and we certainly have as well. And essentially, I saw Spencer speak probably 3 or 4 years ago at an Agency Collective event, and he was just chatting about the importance of 50 meaningful conversations every month. Now, what I'd say is a little bit about me. When like outside of business, inside of business, I'd always try and do something at like 150%. So if I say I'll give you 2 introductions, I'll give you 10. Or if I say you'll have something by next week, you'll have it by tomorrow. Like I've always lived like that. And in a personal life, if I say I'm gonna eat 5 biscuits, I'll have 25 biscuits. Like, I just can't avoid
25 pints, right?
Yeah, 25 pints, exactly. So the point is that I've always done things to excess. So when I heard this 50 conversations concept, I thought that's great. I love talking with people, but I'm not going to do 50 conversations. I'm going to try and do 100 or 150. And so I started on the path, reaching out to people. Now, the absolute golden bullet in all of this is it's very, very simple. You just have to be in the mindset to help the other person. It's as simple as that, right? So you and I have a conversation, and the first thing I'll ask you is, what keeps you up at night? What is your 3 a.m. problem? Because if I can solve that, I'll create reciprocity. Yeah, so then if I can solve your biggest problem and you start getting some sleep, then I guarantee you the next time you have a problem, you'll think of me. And that's perfect. That's all I need. So I started on this process. That was all great. And another thing that people miss is that's the easy part, right? Is having the conversations. So the conversations are broken into 4 sections. So first of all, you have a bit of informal chat. We've got a bit of rapport building. I've then found out the proposition. I'm like, okay, what's your proposition? Once I know that, I bank the proposition. And then I know when I'm having my conversations with others and I'm asking them for their problems, I can go back to that bank and be like, you need to speak to X because they do exactly that, and that will fix your problem. So that's point 2, proposition. The next thing is to understand their target sector, because we speak to a lot of agencies or a lot of business owners, and some of them have exactly this, very similar proposition. So how do you know that referral is absolutely perfect? And it's because you drill down, right? So you go for specifics rather than generalists. So, okay, I have a problem. It's with SEO. Great. What industry are you in? Okay, you're in travel and tourism. Who does travel and tourism SEO in my bank? Okay, yeah, these 3 people. Okay, what's your price point? Okay, go back. Actually, that person was too high. That kind of whittles it down to 2. And then before I know it, I've got the perfect introduction. So finding the sector is great. The next thing I always ask people is, what's their perfect client? And the reason I ask this is because it's a bit like the law of attraction. Like, I know people buy into that and some people don't, but essentially you just don't know who you're talking to. So I always talk to people and say, my dream client, I'd love to work with Merlin Entertainments. So like Legoland, all those guys, that is the dream for me. And so I always mention that to people because you just don't know who you're talking to. Actually, as it so happens, a guy yesterday said, oh yeah, my sister-in-law used to be an account manager. Awesome. Can you get me an in? So That's the third thing. And the final thing is referral partners. So when I'm speaking to agencies, this is particularly relevant. Okay, you do copywriting. Who would you like to talk to? I'd love to talk to web developers. I'd love to talk to marketing strategists. I'd love to talk to SEO people. Perfect. So I know your proposition, so I can make a useful introduction. I know your target sector, so I know who's going to be useful. I know your perfect client, which I can mention to them. And I also know your target agency kind of referral. So once I've got those, the little magic dust is to add 5 meaningful introductions off the back of every one, because that's where the real reciprocity comes, right? So I've heard you, I've listened to you, I let you do most of the talking, and then I'm like, okay, now I'll make you 5 useful introductions from my network. Now the bit at the start is the only bit I would say is arguably the most important part. The rapport building just allows you to filter if you're prepared to open your black book to them or not. There's some people that just won't get the introductions because I'm not prepared to expose them to the network. The network's the most valuable thing I own. So why ever would I just open it to every Tom, Dick and Harry? I wouldn't, right? So you have, go on, yeah?
I was going to ask, so how would you define who's worth opening your network to and who isn't?
Typically, you will have an introduction from someone you know and trust, which obviously shortcuts a lot of that process. Or normally in the first 5 to 10 minutes, via a series of questions, people see it as very informal. Well, think it's very informal, but actually there's real structure that's going on. So little questions I'm asking about values, integrity, honesty, that kind of thing, and just planting those seeds. And if they resonate, then I'm thinking, yeah, okay, this person's a good egg, as opposed to, oh yeah, we just set this up yesterday and we're looking to make a quick buck. Right, okay, not someone I'm prepared to expose our network to. So that's real. Now, don't get me wrong, you've got to kiss a few frogs, and I'm sure there will be a few intros that aren't perfect for everybody. But at the same time, the feedback I get time and time again is those intros have really helped someone. And now, not only have they really helped someone, but the second, and I guarantee it works every time, and the pipeline's good at the moment for this very reason, the second anyone goes to them with a web requirement, the first thing they think of is me.
Amazing.
Yeah, all they think about is, yeah, we've got to talk to Nathan. He does WordPress and Shopify. He's been really helpful. Let me see how I can help. Every time.
Awesome. And when you said in your bank, you pointed to your head. Is that your bank, or are you recording it anywhere?
This is my biggest trouble and my biggest failure on my part is that I hate written process. I like the idea of process, but I have it all in my head. So when I have like with my account manager and everything else, it's really difficult because I have all the ideas and thoughts in my head, and I have the contacts in my head, and this process goes on in my head, and yet actually I've nowhere written down. So when my account manager says to me, Nathan, I want to make an introduction, I go, no problem. Who do you need? As opposed to, yeah, just log into that Google Sheet and have a look. Or go into the CRM.
I guess it depends on personality type and if you're able to. Like my memory is shockingly bad, so I kind of have to get something down. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to.
Definitely. Like, if I was recommending, I'd recommend people put it in their CRM or whatever. The thing for me as well is very personal, right? So when I'm making these introductions, I try and it's not just Conrad, meet Nathan, over to you guys. I normally put a bit of thought into the message and what I'm saying, and like the intros I've certainly made for you recently, you'll notice I've got more and more and more in because I'm really trying to make them as personal and individual as possible.
Yeah. So you're like Conrad, that handsome copywriter in the hat, and
I'll have to revisit what I wrote last night. Yeah,
just fine tune it slightly. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, so like I say, that's realistically the model for the intros and networking really is how can you help others? And then if you have at the forefront in mind how you help others, you'll get your turn, right? It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next month or next year, but I guarantee you it will come back to reward you. Just keep paying it forwards.
I think it's like the two biggest takes from that perhaps are the approach, this kind of selfless approach to networking, which might seem quite counterintuitive to many people, because most networkers, as you know, I think when they're starting out, just try to get their business card out to as many people as possible. And I think I was definitely guilty of that to start with. How many people can I see and plant my business card in their pocket, not realizing that they're meeting hundreds of others. So why would you be remembered if that's all you're doing? If everyone's trying to market to each other, then how would that get you where you need to get to?
One other thing I'd say as well is that when you go through that process and they've got that reciprocity, 9.99999 times out of 10, and I say that because I've had one person recently that didn't ask this, they always ask what you do and have genuine interest and will listen, because you've paid it forward so much for the first, every call I have is 30 minutes. The first 20 to 25 are always about them. And then just before I hang up, they're like, wait, what about you? And you're like, oh, okay, very quickly, this is what we do. And then you've just absolutely got them hooked for like 5 really good minutes of what you do, how you do it, and who you want to talk to.
Awesome. I kind of equate it almost to content marketing in a way. You know, it's this selfless serve not sell kind of approach that subtly and eventually you know, what comes around goes around, and you know, they think of you because you've been that person or that company or that brand to kind of offer wisdom, help, thought leadership, or something else.
Yeah,
And
exactly right. And actually, if you're helping others, there's a real feel-good factor as well. And that's why we do it. It's not all about winning new work. There's actually a really nice piece at the end of it, which is you do feel really good. You go to bed at night and there's nothing better than, as you've said, that one of the a lot of people see me as a very well-networked person, and they hold you in high regard and they talk positively of you. And that's the biggest thing about your personal brand. And I guess your business brand as well, is how are people talking about you and your brand when you're not there? And normally, I'm glad to say it's fairly positive.
yeah, you haven't heard us talking about you.
Yeah,
I'm only like this when you're on camera. As soon as we end this interview, no, I'm joking. But I think I was going to say, yeah. So the 2 biggest takes I'd say from that part was this selfless attitude, and then I think the consistency. It's like this general approach, but then consistently doing so. And I can vouch for the fact that you are extremely consistent with this approach. That's why I've got you on this call, because I'm constantly getting intros and trying to keep up with them and, like, you know, truly appreciate them, of course.
I guess just quickly, one thing on that would be going back to it. So it's fine, you and I have a conversation today for the first ever time, and I make 5 introductions off the back of that. But then what do I do in 3 months' time? I normally reconnect, see how you are, see how you got on with the first 5, and then see if we can jump on another call to talk about possibly another 5, but certainly how the business is going, etc.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And I think from my take from networking, which I've not done as prolifically as you, but I think that over the years, I kind of started to quickly realize that it's about real relationships, right? It's not about volume. Obviously, there's a certain volume that we're talking about in order to, you know, reach a target which will eventually get you business. If you have the time and you can do it, go for it. I'd say to people starting out, don't stretch yourself too thin. Make sure it's something that you can, a target you can hit and actually maintain relationships with. So it's not just, there we go, that's it. I think like it's those ongoing relationships that will eventually lead to, you know, to business. And, you know, when you go back to a networking event, go and speak to the same person that you know, right? Don't just suddenly go, no, I've spoken to them already, let's move on.
Exactly right. And actually, one thing COVID hopefully has provided us all is a great opportunity to have those initial awkward conversations. You can get those over and done with online, so that when you're offline and you're at a networking event or you're at a conference or a gig or whatever, you can go and have a real meaningful conversation with someone, because you already know what they are, what makes them tick. You can just be like, okay, how's the kids? What's new? You're still playing sports? Whatever it's going to be, you can actually have a really great conversation.
Awesome. I'll add one extra tip there, which is I found it's good to get to know the person running the networking event, because often they're the most connected and they might be the most willing to connect people, because that's the nature of running a networking event. So sometimes if it's a big networking event and you get to know the organizers, they'll be willing to say, oh yeah, you should go and speak to him, or you should go and speak to her. So a little
just
extra
supercharge that concept. I guess the thing to do to be able to get in with the person running the event, because everyone's going to try and do that, is try and bring a guest to the networking event, because then you're helping them, right? So back to that idea of serving and thinking of someone else before yourself. Bring someone else to the networking event. That helps the organizer of the network event. You then have an excuse to go and talk to the organizer, introduce the person. You've banked a bit of credit, and now, of course, they in return will introduce you to people in the room.
Perfect. Full of tricks today, Nathan. Full of gold. This is gold. I hope everyone is listening and writing this stuff down. You mentioned obviously the word COVID in that last bit. It's probably quite a good segue to the fact that the world has drastically changed over the last several weeks or months. How do you find networking in a post or in a coronavirus riddled world? Like, what differences are there? Does the same approach and philosophy carry through to the digital world?
Yeah, I think if anything, the reciprocity is amplified because people are really having to have faith in humanity. So when you do those 5 intros, they're kind of even more grateful. The only thing I would say is there's no substitution for face-to-face interaction from a personal level. I love having calls, and calls are fantastic, but at the same time, I like looking at the whites of someone's eyes and sharing a coffee or a bit of lunch. The thing is, when you're sharing dinner or lunch or breakfast or drinks or whatever, you find out a little bit about them just by what they're ordering, and by what they're drinking, and that allows you to go off on tangents, have conversations. Of course, well, yeah, you can start looking around someone's house in the background and being like, "Oh, I see you're into art," or "I see you're into plants," but it's just,
And
yeah,
book writers.
yeah, exactly. But it doesn't quite feel right. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge right now. But actually, I think just keep sticking to the model, have faith in the model. It's worked this far. It's continuing to work now. And actually, as I said a bit earlier, the pipeline right now isn't too bad because of this model that we're implementing.
Good. I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you.
I think last question is about actually finding the right networking events. And I think I want to kind of split that question into two. One being, where do you find the right networking events? What should there be a mix of different kinds, like industry, peer to peer kind of networking events? And on top of that, what about in this kind of lockdown world that we live in, given that it may continue for a while? Like, where can you find digital networking events? Where can you find real life face-to-face networking events?
So there are different horses for different courses, and there are certainly different networking events based on your stage of growth. There are some more formulated, almost forced networking events in terms of referral, which may be great when you're starting out. They may not be great when you're a bit more established. They may be. It's really, really subjective, and it's totally up to you, the ones you go to. Back to that kissing a few frogs. You've really got to try a few. Some you will love, some you'll hate. Some you'll go on an off day, some you'll go on a brilliant day. Look, with any marketing, it's all about split testing, right? So go to some, look at the cost. Again, all of these normally have a cost to them. Okay, what is the cost? And some people will miss the fact that the cost is also time. So just because one event charges 50 quid for an hour and one event charges £5 for 3 hours, it doesn't mean the cheaper one's better, because you've also lost 3 hours of your day. So that's something else to consider. And yeah, right now in COVID, like, there's a good chance to dip your toe into a few events. The only trouble is you can't really test the waters properly because you don't know how they are offline. So it's okay. The only thing I would say with the COVID ones, they're all very samey, right? They're all very structured, which they have to be, because you've got multiple people on a call and you're trying to balance it, and it's hard. Whereas in a room, people can spin off and have impromptu conversations. That can't happen online. So yeah, I think the big thing with networking is it's okay to get it wrong. Like, loads of people get it wrong. I still get it wrong. I still get invited to things thinking it's going to be great. The main thing is to look at your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Who are they? What do they look like? And where do they hang out? Where do they spend their time? And how do you get there? The flip to that, of course, is that so that's one thing in terms of winning customers. There's then a personal development piece, right? Which is, how do you surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are doing a similar thing that you can learn from? If you look at there's a model called the plus equals minus model. I talk about this with Marcus quite a lot, but think about, okay, where are people further on in your journey? So if you're a copywriter, where do other copywriters that are bigger than you and more experienced than you, where do they hang out so you can go and pick their brains? Where are they going to be spending their time? Okay, what about copywriters at the same level as you? Where are they hanging out? Are they in this community? Perhaps, Conrad, in your community, you're going to do some offline events as well, I'm sure. But
we definitely will once we're allowed to, yeah.
Exactly right. So, okay, so they're the kind of things to go to, right? And then at the earlier side, okay, how do you pay it forwards as well? Because one of the best forms of learning is teaching. So how can you then go and find some copywriters earlier on in their journey than you that you can talk to and help and advise and push forwards? Because there's nothing more rewarding than mentorship as well.
Love it. Yeah, all really important stuff. I said that was the last question, but I lied. There's one more which has just sprung to mind off the back of that last bit. In regarding time, because you mentioned time and wasting time, and I think that perhaps well, not that we have any time at all as agency founders, like in fact quite the opposite, but you know, in some cases when you've grown an agency to a certain size, you're not wearing as many hats as say we were when we started these things. And you might have you might, as a founder, your main role might be biz dev and going out there and networking all the time to bring in work to give it back to the production team. However, as a newbie, someone starting out as a freelancer, for example, a freelance copywriter or something else, they obviously need to be, having billable work, billable time. So have you got like a perfect percentage split between how much time they should be trying to go and gain business through networking, or how much time they should be spending actually delivering the work? It's quite a tough one to get the balance right.
Hard juggling act, and actually some of the networking and biz dev stuff will be out of hours. There'll be things in the evenings, things in the morning. I think the thing to dispel from the outset is that if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job, I wouldn't set up your own business. So like essentially, if you like, you're going to have to work more hours, right? So actually 7 till 9 in the morning might be the perfect chance to go through emails. One thing I would say, if you're managing time, is set time aside in your diary, fix blocks for emails. Don't let your emails rule your life and be a checklist. Then look at planning your week. So find the network events, the work you can do within reason. It will have time frames, but at the same time, you can fit it in around the events. The events won't move for you, right? They're at a set time. So start with a blank calendar, put in some absolutely musts. For example, got to have lunch 12 till 12:30, got to have contingency time, put contingency time every week, got to have some time for gym and fitness and keeping myself healthy, got to have some time to bath the kids or whatever. Put all this in the diary. Then start filling it up with networking, events, outbound activity, that kind of thing. That will start to fill in the diary, and then you'll leave blocks of time for work. All I would say is as soon as you get loads of work, what will happen is you'll become really busy, and then you'll just automatically you'll just overrun all the other stuff.
Destroy the blocks, yeah.
Yeah, you'll get rid of the blocks. You won't be spending time with the kids. You won't be going out to the networking. What you've got to remember is that you still need to maintain a pipeline going forwards. And actually, you started this business for probably a multitude of reasons, but one was, I guess, more time, or certainly, probably financial freedom, more time with family, better life going forwards, whatever it's going to be. You can't lose sight of that, but at the same time, it won't just happen overnight. So yes, you might not be able to bath the kids every night, but at the same time, you will be able to spend some quality time with them. And it's important not to just do all work and no play.
Yeah, and on that note, we talk in the course about the power balance between the client and the freelancer or the service provider. We're trying to encourage our community of copywriters to try to get that balance right from the offset. There will be, especially when you're starting, you're working with one-man bands, entrepreneurs, startups, they will try to push you into doing things their way. They will try to give you the deadline. You'll ask them when the deadline is, they'll say yesterday. And they'll try to squeeze you into a box. But even by pushing back from the start, by doing so and saying, actually, I've got this much time, because you've got other projects on the go, you've got other life things happening. So try and be strict and push back against those types of clients. I think that not only will it help you get some kind of good work-life balance, but they should respect you for it. If you're saying, actually, this is my process, this is how I do things, you need to fill out my discovery sheet. It takes X amount of time for discovery phase, then X amount of time for delivery. Then they should respect you for it and, actually want to work with you more than someone that seems desperate to go, yeah, I'll do it whenever, I'll work this weekend.
And there's definitely a fine line, right, between actually, yes, you sometimes have to flex in terms of availability. So just recently we had someone that said, I need a discovery session, I need it this week. Having said that, the actual process, you are doing what you do because you're good at it, and you follow your process because you know that's what works. And people that try and shortcut the process or overstep your process, it will fail, right? It might cause you a very quick win, and then it will cause a disaster. And don't get me wrong, again, at the outset, you will have projects that don't go to plan. Let's not even pretend you won't, right? There will be things happen and things that you did not expect, and you go, oh no, I did not want that to happen. That's all part of it. You have to dust yourself down. Sometimes the client will judge you more on how you react to it and how you deal with it than the problem itself. Some problems are even out of your control. maybe it's your team. The second you start getting a team, you then have people doing things that you possibly didn't even ask them to do, right? And then that's another whole conversation around, okay, someone's done this. They've not done it on purpose or maliciously. They've done it because they think what they're doing was best. Okay, it hasn't worked out. How do we deal with this now? Because it's our responsibility. At the end of the day, you own the business. It's down to you to deal with it.
Awesome. Great stuff. Nathan, you have been a fountain of wisdom today. I think that we could keep talking for hours probably, but there's so many little tips and tricks and, you know, just solid advice from the world's #1 networker. So I hope everyone finds this useful. Obviously, we will drop Nathan's details into the community. Connect with him, follow him on LinkedIn. You know, we'll drop his website in there as well. Obviously, if anyone at any point needs a website, then, and it seems like a good fit, it might be worth reaching out.
Definitely. Yeah, love that. And like I say, reach out, any questions, more than happy to support you. But most importantly, one thing I'd say about communities is get involved. What you put in is what you get out. So really engage with the community, engage with the other members, connect with the other members. That's what they're there for. And yeah, make the most of it. It's a fantastic resource.
Nice one. Perfect. Thank you so much, mate. Cheers.
No problem, mate. Look after yourself. See you soon.